thank you for attending, all of you. And I would want to go through how this whole project of mine started, because I used to work for Express Dairy for 17 years, and when I left, I had quite a lot of editions of the House magazine that I took away with me, covering 30-odd year period, and also had some photographs of my own, press cuttings, reports, and things like this. And like many people, I'm retired now. I only retired a couple of years ago, and I thought, okay, well, this is time to do something about this material. Maybe a few people would be interested in it. So I started scanning the material, purchased a domain, chose a name for it, started a new website. And then I thought, okay, well, no one's going to know about this unless I can promote it in some way. So I started a Facebook group as well. The pictures on the left of the screen, by the way, some of them are relevant to what I'm saying, some of them are not. This isn't an irrelevant one, but just an example of the sort of material that I either have or acquired. So quite interesting. A tiny little book meant for children. A little about me, though. I actually started work on a dairy farm in Crookham, Somerset, when I was 16. That's me here. Not when I was 16, but I was managing one of Express's dairies. And then I moved to another dairy farm near Guildford. I studied for a National Certificate in Agriculture. I then got a distinction, went on to university at Nottingham, and then I worked for the Milk Marketing Board at Thames Ditton for now long gone, but that was their headquarters. And then got a degree in agriculture, and then I joined Express Dairy as a graduate trainee, and I worked for them for 17 years in factory project manager positions and things like this. The factory actually in the picture on behind was the one I sort of managed a sort of £1.5 million project, re-equipping it and such like. So but after I got bored with that, I started my own software business, and I ran that until a couple of years ago when I sold the business. But as it happened, maybe not surprisingly, we designed systems for food and dairy and brewing laboratories. So I visited many dairies, including Express dairies in that time, over almost 30 years, and made lots of friends and acquaintances in dairies, and particularly in Express, and people that I'm still in contact with now and who've provided material for this project. So what was Express Dairy? Well, it has a long history. It was founded in 1864 and it operated until 2003, when there were a series of buyouts and takeovers and other such things. But it was a big operation. I mean, even by their centenary, they employed 17,000 people. There were 250 plus shops and supermarkets. In fact, they were the first company to introduce supermarkets into the UK. And they had a chain of hotels, restaurants, creameries, and such like. So it was a big and complex operation. However, the company doesn't exist anymore. So I think probably I have a static audience, at least I felt I had, probably a diminishing number of people, in fact, who would be interested in the company. There are still a number of sites that were Express sites still operating under different owners at different parts of the country. There's a couple of creameries down in Devon, there's one in Somerset at Frome, two in Shropshire, and one in Scotland. So they're still operating, but under different companies. Some of the people that work for Express are in fact still working for the successor companies. So what did I need to start this project? Well, this was one of the various items I needed to purchase. It's an A3 flatbed scanner of very high quality resolution. I've got another document scanner, which is very, very fast and will scan photographs very, very quickly. I've got a film scanner for scanning films and transparencies and such like. And I've got a big monitor for editing and such like, which I need to keep calibrated as well to make sure that the images I'm editing are correctly color rendered. And I've got several Windows PCs that I'm using, including the one I'm talking to you on now. So there was quite a bit involved. Some of this I had because I was in software, but some of it I had to purchase from scratch. So there was some reasonable expenditure getting set up for this. And in fact, just out of interest, when I go out, as I do quite often, to visit either museums or people who have material for me, I can quite often take my scanner with me in the car, and I've got my own internet connection, which is mobile. I connect the whole thing up with a laptop, and I can actually sit there. I remember I spent a morning at Honiton Museum earlier this year. They very kindly allowed me to scan maybe 100 different documents and photos they had. So it's been good and very, very useful. So not just something I'm sitting here doing. Sometimes I'm out and about doing it as well. In terms of software, that was an important choice. Now, I use Adobe Lightroom for everything. And one of the things about using Lightroom as opposed to using, say, Photoshop or other image editors is that the original images that you capture or scan are never overwritten or changed. They're there permanently. The way the software works, and I hope I'm not going into too much detail here or telling you all things you already know, but the way the software works, as you edit an image, it only stores the changes you've made. You can reverse them at any time or indeed go back to the original. And I thought that was an important concept, because I'm going to go on in a minute to talk about editing and what to do and what not to do. But the thing is, I do have access to all the original documents. And I think probably from a museum aspect, maybe you would see that as important as well. And also, everything is stored in the cloud, so nothing can be lost. There's no local storage of any of the material that I have. And it also means you can view and edit it from anywhere. So I can edit and view images on my phone, on a laptop if I'm out and about and such like. And occasionally you can put the material into albums, which obviously I've done to sort things out, and you can share those albums and allow other people to edit them as well. So occasionally I've had contributors with more knowledge than me, and they've gone through these and put additional captions and things like that on them. In terms of the website, I use Adobe Portfolio. Now, this is linked to Lightroom. So what it in effect means is that when you create an album in Lightroom, so a set of photos, for example, about Crediton Creamery in Devon, all I need to do is link that album to the website, and magically all the images that are in the album magically appear on the website, complete with their captions and everything else. The only limitation is that each album can only contain up to 250 images, but that hasn't been a limitation because it's more, I try to keep them under that, in fact, to make it a bit easier to browse through and such like. I also use software to control the scanning, and there's a product called Silverfast, which is very well known, that I use for scanning, and obviously using a flatbed scanner, I can scan without the risk of damaging material that's loaned to me, which is clearly very important to make sure that everything is preserved in the way it was sent to me. And I've got other software I use for scanning a large number of photos, and believe it or not, you can put a stack of 50 photographs in the machine, and it will scan them in less than 4 minutes to a very high quality. So it's been really useful on occasions. I use some other software for color replacement and crude editing of photos sometimes. And I also do a video editing, and there are quite a lot of videos I've created from video or other material that's been sent to me, and I use a product called TechSmith Camtasia, which is very nice, easy to use. And there's sometimes I need to use OCR, optical character recognition, to scan text that's embedded in image, and I use a thing called Image Scan OCR, which is a free Microsoft Store app and very good. And for document publishing, and this is something which is increasingly important, because one of the things I've found is that the historical material is scattered in all sorts of different places, small articles in different journals, things from museums, all sorts of different things, all unrelated to each other. And what I've been doing recently is try to create my own documents, bringing together all the information I've created from these diverse sources. And that's quite a satisfying thing to do, quite tricky sometimes. And then I publish them as PDFs, and people can download them or view them on the website as well. Just about the Facebook group, I started that just in March, and it grew amazingly quickly. I was just talking earlier, I sort of felt that this was a very niche topic that wouldn't generate more than a handful of interest, but actually we've got 950. I think we'll get to 1,000 people in the group by the end of this year in only 6 months. I do post in other Facebook groups too. Usually they're ones local history groups and things like that in areas where the company operated. I've got a rule that unless I occasionally post an unknown image where I don't know what it is and I'm asking people to tell me what it is. I had a couple of replies this morning on an image of an old creamery that I posted, and usually people are successful, but I always research and I post the topic, the source, and the year of the image. I won't put anything on the website, and I try not to put anything on Facebook where I don't know what it is and where it came from and roughly when it is, even if it's only the decade. There's quite a few Facebook groups that will just post random images with no information at all about what it is, where it came from, or anything, and that isn't my style at all, and I don't think it's appropriate. I haven't had any problems with spam or inappropriate comments. I have found it necessary to pre-approve new posts, except for some trusted members, which is a feature that Facebook allows. I've really only had to delete 1 or 2 posts in the time. One pornographic post someone put on, and someone else put something not very pleasant about somebody, and I removed that because it's not the whole idea of the thing. But I haven't had any problems like this at all. And on a typical day on this group, there are maybe 50 or 100 posts, and probably a dozen actual comments about historical things. So it's been a successful group, I think. And people have contributed new material, but actually less than 5% than what I have has come from direct post on Facebook. Usually what happens is members contact me either through Facebook Messenger or on email and offer material to me. Sometimes they've already scanned it or photographed it. They send it electronically, and I've got a Dropbox folder people can put things in without a loss of quality. Or people just use Royal Mail or post or courier material to me, and I'll scan this here and then send it to them. Sometimes people don't want the material returned, but usually people want it back, and I'm very careful in the way I handle everything. So here on the left picture here is an interesting little booklet for children about where milk comes from. Somebody sent me a copy of. Image quality. Now this is a potential problem area. Facebook users tend to think that it's quite okay to send me some crazy picture with some backgrounds of irrelevant material, things at funny angles, or photographed like this one here. I know it's the wrong way around, but I can correct that, but photographed at a trapezoid angle, things with an interesting silver dish given as a presentation, but photographed on an old document box and things like this, or yeah, some interesting glasses that were given as a free gift but sat on an armchair with a cover over it, and someone with a hunting crop that was given as a gift to somebody who works at Shrewsbury Creamery, but just randomly put on their table with all sorts of other miscellaneous things. I could go on, but I think you probably get the general idea. So it is a problem area. Sometimes I suggest how they could improve a shot, or ask them to send it by post, or sometimes I'll visit and do the thing myself. So the various solutions to this. And yeah, I can get a high quality image through Dropbox if I need it. And as I just mentioned, I do insist on knowing the topic, location, and year before I put things on the website. And I need that because I decided at an early stage that within each section, I would order things chronologically. So if I don't know the year, that gives me a problem. So there are a couple of sections that are ordered in a different way by location, A to Z order of location, but generally everything's in order chronologically. And these pictures here are the sort of thing that create quite a lot of interest, particularly group shots of people that used to work at somewhere. The one down here, that the ladies were in the laboratory. That was at Exeter, I think, and the group of maintenance fitters. In fact, this guy here sitting down, I think this was a retirement due for him. He actually was an amateur photographer, and I mentioned in a minute I got in touch with his daughter, who then gave me his complete collection of pictures. So it's very funny how one thing leads on to another. So that was that. Another contentious area, attribution and copyright. So every time I receive something, I record the source bit in the Lightroom database, which doesn't show on the website, but it's available to me. So I know where something has come from and who's given it to me, and any other information. If I know that it's a copyrighted item, then I'll put the copyright on the image as well, the originator's copyright. If I don't know, it goes in as default as copyright to me. And people, whoops, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I don't often know who has the copyright, if anyone does, in the images. I only know who gave it to me. And I always describe putting a caption on what the item is. And here we are. This one here was from 1950s from Minsterley, which is in Shropshire, in Shrewsbury. And this is the lady in the picture here. Someone who commented about the driver of the vehicle. He was actually her father, and I put that comment in as on a caption. And on the bottom, I put the name of the lady who gave me the picture in order to put it and where it came from. There's a Facebook group for a little village near to Shrewsbury. So that's an example of the sort of commenting and captioning that I'm doing. And quite often people are putting quite detailed comments and memories in, and I'll put those in to the caption on the image as well. But I must say I do correct grammatical and spelling errors, which are numerous. So I don't put them on just as they're written. I think it's nicer to people to correct their obvious grammar and spelling errors before putting them on the website. So don't know if I'm right or wrong in doing that, but it seems appropriate to me. Yes, so what to do about images that have all sorts of weird things on them. So here, this top left picture is the picture as I was given it, and the arrows are pointing to various splodges and spots and things on the image. And it's a weird sort of bluish color as well. Below is how it looks after I've edited it. So I am removing spots and blemishes and things like that that spoil the image. And generally with black and white images, I'm changing the color to a standard black and white. I'm not normally leaving them as sepia or faded or whatever weird colors they appear in. And often there are many, many blemishes on images. So this picture bottom right of the Marshall's Dairies truck, you can see the little circles here. Each of those represents a blob or a spot on the image that I've corrected and removed. So there's quite a lot of work involved in this. And I suppose there is a question, well, is it appropriate to remove spots and blemishes, and, whether it's right to correct the colors and things. I think the sort of view I've taken on this is I want the images to be interesting and useful. And after all, to go back to the Marshall's Dairies truck, these spots were not part of the original scene. They were added as part of some subsequent editing or whatever. So I sort of feel reasonably happy about correcting them and improving them, but I'm sure you guys will have some opinion on this. And similar with color cast corrections, spot removal. Here again, the top picture here is an image as it was presented, the arrows to various artifacts on the photo, and it's a weird color cast as well. And I've removed those blobs in the bottom of it and then put it on the website, as you can see the bottom picture. Similar, another example, this is the original picture here as presented. This is the removal of all the spots on it, which, as you can see, were very many. And on the right here is the final picture as it's presented. So I don't know if I'm doing the right or the wrong thing, but that's what I've been doing, and it seems to add something to the collection anyway. Yeah, this harks back to something I mentioned earlier, that historical information is often very fragmented, and this is an example, or a non-existent really. So I've started little mini research projects to bring together text and pictures about some niche or subtopic from different sources. In some cases, I'm rescanning or using OCR to retype the image in if I've got it. And on the left here is a little article I did about TH Lewis, who are a company that manufactured vehicles for Express Dairy. And I managed to get together a whole sort of subset of some pictures and some text explaining about their operations. So, and actually, I've been doing more and more of this, and also generating videos and posting them on YouTube as well. I've got a YouTube channel for Express Dairy Tales as well. So this involves sort of research and putting together information, which is interesting, I think. I've also made a number of visits to people that have interesting material, and I've been to Appleby and Cuddington and Cheshire, Exeter, Crediton, somewhere in Middlesex, Honiton, Shropshire, several visits to Shropshire, collecting the sort of images that are shown on the left here. So these are both actually at Minsterley in Shropshire. And one thing often triggers another. So I've met people near the site who've introduced me to other people, who in turn have then, and I mentioned earlier about the photographer that his daughter contacted me, and I managed to get in touch with her through Facebook, and one thing leads on to another. So it's been very interesting. And when people loan me material and I scan it, I always give them the full set of edited image back again for them to enjoy themselves or use them for their friends, relatives, and children, things like that. So it seems to sort of work both ways in sort of a way. I've made a note of what costs have been involved in this, because it's not minuscule. You know, I'm paying out subscriptions for various pieces of software, for the website and for things like that. So the summary table on the left is the sort of costs that I've incurred in the past 6 months on this project. Doesn't include any equipment costs. But yeah, it's not something that, and I probably would admit that this project has cost more in terms of money and definitely more in terms of time than I anticipated. For the last few months, I've been spending 3, 4, 5 hours every day working on material that people have sent me, which is quite a commitment, really, and much more than I expected. But you know, if you can do a job, you may as well do it properly, I think. And lastly, you know, I do need to think about preserving this archive, because what a shame it would be for all this work to be done and then eventually for it to be lost when and such like. And you know, there is some ongoing cost, even if the collection kept static as it is now. There is an ongoing cost involved in keeping the domain registered and the Adobe subscription for the website to be maintained and such like. And I have a friend who may eventually agree to take on responsibility for this, but it's costing about £150 a year. And what I intend doing is make arrangements with my will, so when I go, someone can continue the collection. Or another alternative would be for some interested party, and don't ask me who that would be, because I've got no idea, who could all this data and information could be exported out and re-imported into another method of making it available, if that were possible. But I think probably the preservation of digital collections is something that affects all of us and all of you in the future, I think, and probably you have opinions on this, but I guess it's going to become something of increasing interest and possibly concern into the future. Well, thank you for attending, and I hope it was interesting, and obviously I'm very happy to take any questions you have or what have you, but thank you.
That was fascinating. Thank you, Peter. And I think you probably hit the nail on the head in that final slide when you sort of say it's something that I'm sure many museums are grappling with in terms of digital sustainability, in terms of the programs, the formats, the databases that we utilize for our digital collections, and probably the ones that aren't catalogued in any way as well of our own enterprises. So our own, you know, records of events and activities and marketing images and things like that, that maybe we just sort of get so blasé about when thing. But I mean, it is just astounding what you've achieved in the past 6 months or so, if not a little bit longer now. But just to think about the scale of what you've pulled together. Did anyone have any questions for Peter? Or
I have about 7,500 images and documents in the collection at the moment.
Peter, what do you do with the items that are kind of sent your way and not wish to be returned, sort of thing? So when you do get those donations, where
well, I've got some. I keep them, obviously, keep them safely. I have got a number of duplicates as well, which I tend to give away duplicates to people who are interested. It seems as a bit of, you know, bit of a generosity to do that. But I did actually attempt to give part of my collection some time ago to Reading.
Yes, yeah.
But if I'm honest, they didn't seem particularly interested in it and put obstacles in my way to presenting it to them. So that didn't in fact happen. But I'm more, I don't have any real need for the physical. I probably got a pile of you know, magazines and journals this thick. I'm more than happy to give it away, because the physical side of it isn't of any interest to me. But and in fact, another thing on this topic is that I've got a number of members of the group who themselves have substantial collections, and some of them, I mean, one guy has got a collection of over 2,000 milk bottles and containers. I mean, the actual milk bottles and containers, not the pictures of them. And someone else has got milk floats, which they have in their own collection. And people that probably I should say at my stage of life, I'm in my 70s, thinking to themselves, well, do I really want this anymore? And what can I do with this? And I've had one of my reasons for joining your network, in fact, was because one or two people asked me whether I could find a way that they could donate their material. And although I've asked for some lists of inventories of what people have, which I haven't actually received, but it's a subject of concern to quite a few people.
Yeah, well, when you've put that time, energy, and love into developing a collection, you sort of want to hope that there's a way that it will continue in a different format when you're not there to oversee it yourself. And I think that's, you know, as true for the digital as for the physical. But I guess that's that slight worry is that you almost become the sort of point at which point people think, well, maybe I can leave it to Peter. And I wondered whether you were inadvertently creating a physical archive as well as the digital archive, just through donations and kind gifts, sort of thing. So
yes, but not of any great significance.
trying not to, by the sounds of it,
Yes.
trying to focus in on the physical. And I found it also very fascinating your sort of the way that you approach preserving, correcting, altering the images, but obviously with that original scan still retained. But I think you sort of summed it up nicely in this sort of enjoyment factor of, you know, having an image that then your visitors to your website on Facebook can engage with, can enjoy, can interact with, which then the flecks of dust on the original image that was then scanned, or the scarring, or the poor color management
Yes.
previously isn't detracting from that, so they can probably have a far better engagement with it, on the understanding that if a particular image was something they wanted to explore further, I'm sure then you could be able to extract the original artifact
I
image.
see there being we're talking about images here, but there's the same issue surely must apply to rural museums' collections of physical objects, like an old rusty old plough or something like this. You know, actually, when farmers had machinery on their farms, they generally looked after them and maintained them and stopped them going rusty. They're often quite shiny, in fact, and were painted regularly because they were something that was important to do the job. But of course, when you see them in museums, it's usually because they've been abandoned somewhere in a field somewhere, and someone's thought, okay, that would be an interesting thing for people to have. So I guess in a way, you have the same dilemma. Do you bring the item back to the condition in which it was when it was in use, or do you leave it as a rusty relic for people to admire? I don't know what the answer is to that, but maybe you do.
I think it is that dilemma, isn't it? And you know, I know George Munger couldn't be here today, but as a conservator, the level of intervention that you ever have with any of your objects is so important, because you don't want to detract from the age and the experience, you know, the life history of that object, and enabling that to be demonstrated. You don't make it look shiny new, untouched, but equally you want to make sure it's preserved so that future generations will understand how it operated and the format in which it did. So yeah, I think it's like anything, you kind of, there is always that balance and that compromise and that identity, you know, working out the right solution for each individual object. But,
May I ask then, from a museum perspective, do you disapprove of me altering these images and improving them? Is it something that you wouldn't want to do if it was part of your collection?
I don't know if any of my museum colleagues have a thought on that one. Debbie, do come in. Or may need to unmute you. see whether we still can't hear you, Debbie. There we go.
Sorry, there,
No, you're
Diane. You would still have the original, presumably. So, you know, you've got the two. You've got the better one and the original one. So I think you'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting to hear that the program that you use, and I've now forgotten the name. Was it
Lightroom?
Lightroom.
Yes.
Gives you that option of, you know, not overwriting that original scan. So
it's actually not even an option, it's the way it works.
It's the default setting.
Yeah. Well, it's the way it works. It only stores the editing changes, and obviously you can't see. Well, you can actually go back through them all, undoing things that you've done one by one, which is quite useful. Does
it generate those images with all the little white circles on it, in the sense of, will it show you where you have edited?
Yes.
At a glance, or
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
If you're interested, I'll show you that now. Let me have a look. I had trouble with this the other day. Stop sharing, and then if I share screen, share a different window,
because that's almost just as important, sort of seeing where you've gone, sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
We just find an image that this applies to. I wouldn't have to look too hard, but.
While you're looking, Peter, have you ever had to turn things down, sort of collecting policy sort of style, where people have gone off on too many tangents and you think, actually, this isn't for me?
Yes, I've got. I'll show you this. I've got currently 465 images
not
used, where I've rejected for various reasons. In some cases it may be because I just don't know who they are, where they were, or when they were.
And you can't connect it back necessarily to Express.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Or it may be that the image quality is so poor, or maybe they're too repetitive. You know, there's an image here of a milk float, but I didn't consider it interesting enough to warrant things like that. So yes, there are quite a lot. But yes, going back to
sorry, I distracted you.
No, that's okay. Let's find one here. Let's find something that probably has been fairly heavily edited. Try that. Let's have a look at that. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Right. So yeah, every one of these little spots here reveals some blemish or
something that you've
and I can go back in history and I can go back to the original. You can see it's popped up now. Now I click on this, and here's the original one. And here, you know, there's one of the ones I hid, a little blob on this thing, and one there, and they're not this particular one there, and they're not. This goes back to what I was saying, when is an artifact not an artifact? So looking at this here, possibly there was a white blob on the platform, or possibly it's just an artifact on the image.
Or it may have been a piece of dust on the scanner not when you did it, but when a previous copy was made or something like that.
So I don't always know. So I tend to, you know, let's have a look at this one. Nothing much on there. I'm finding good examples here, am I?
It shows the quality.
Yeah, I mean, here's another one. There's quite a few blemishes on this that I've hidden. Yes, and as I say, you can revert back at any time. Just to go back to how it was originally. So yeah, it's good. So,
I was impressed at the kind of the quality of the image as well, in terms of the scan and thing. So does your system automatically then downscale those to appear on the website, or because I'm assuming you're retaining those sort of higher resolution images in your files, but probably don't want those on the website, or are they?
I'm usually reducing them to 80% to put them on the website, just to make them quicker to load. So they're quite good.
Quite large still.
Yes.
On there.
But actually, when you download an image from Facebook by right-clicking on it and save as, there's actually a further reduction in the image quality. So it's not. So when people ask me for or I feel it's appropriate to give someone a high resolution image, then I just do that in the software.
Go back to the original.
I just go to export. When you export, you can choose what quality to export as. So I'll export as 100%.
Yeah.
And then send it in that form to people. So yeah, you have control over that.
Thank you.
I mean, I've got in total,
Mm.
I'm actually using this software, some other images not Express Stereo related as well, but I mean, I've got 32,314 images. So there's no real limit, and all of that is stored in the cloud. I don't need any storage of my own to achieve that.
Be able to do it.
So you know, I'd recommend this software. I mean, obviously Adobe is a very well-known company with a very good reputation, used by professionals. So yeah, it's worked out well.
Yes, that's it. It's the sustainability of any software you use or the company you use it. You want it to be able to update sort of 5, 10, 15 years down the line and still be accessible, don't you? So again, picking a well-known brand, it probably reduces the risk of things becoming obsolete. But no, that is fascinating. Thank you again, Peter, so much for your time today. That's been, I mean, from a very selfish point of view, I've just inherited a large photographic collection, so my mind is now going with, with what I could be doing and should be doing, if only to share amongst my family and sort of closer associates sort of thing. But it's nothing on this scale. But just I'm now seeing the possibilities of again what could happen that. And thank you, Peter Greener, for your comments in the chats as well. I know you haven't been able to join us in voice, as it were, but hopefully that's something we can pick up on the network, on chats there, and the like. But and huge thanks to Debbie and Jen too. And we will say farewell, go and top up our teas and coffees again, and hopefully see you in 2024 for more Chewing the Cuds. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for inviting me.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.